Okay, so as I mentioned before, I actually, while I was waiting for the encoder to come, I created a casing for my pedal board so that it would protect and just keep the wires organized in a better fashion. So basically what I did is I used some door hinges that I just got from Home Depot, and then I just had some extra wood, so I decided to just use that. Basically made a box that you can open and close on top of the pedal board. I cut out two little small blocks on either side, so one here and then one here, and then also just one long slab here, and then a smaller piece that runs from this edge down to here so that you can connect the hinges. And it works really nice. And what that allows you to do is, before I had that whole conglomerate of messy wires, right? So I basically just used some zip ties and drilled small holes for the zip ties along the edge. That way I could organize the wires and tighten them up a little bit so they can run along the top edge of the lid. And then I also attached the encoder to this. I drilled a hole on the back side. What I'm going to do is I'm going to order, yes, this is messy because I didn't have the tools to do it, so I basically just used a very large drill bit and just drilled multiple holes and took a giant hammer and just whacked it and got a hole out of it. But it worked. Same thing for here. But what was I saying? Yes, the encoder. So I am going to order a fan, like a small computer fan, to place back here to keep the system cool and make sure it continues to run. That's just something extra that I'm going to do. Try to keep everything running fast and well. What else? Okay, yeah. So I went ahead and wired everything back up. Remember that we have the wires coming out from the pedals. These run out, connecting to these mullets connectors here, one for each pedal. The encoder indicates the pedal number that's needed. And then also I have a USB to MIDI, or MIDI to USB, whichever way you're thinking about it, cables. I ran those to the back here, and that is what's going to connect to our computer here. I'm using a Mio something I just found at Guitar Center. This guy right here, in case you're looking for one. Hopefully it will work now once I plug the power in. Now, the reason why, according to the people at DTS, why I shorted this circuit out, or the integrated circuits, these little guys right here, is apparently I have touched the plus end, or the power end, to the encoder IC circuits. So I'm guessing maybe that was from my multimeter, maybe. But anyway, apparently it shorted the ICs out. And what is supposed to happen is, remember, I have my power supply here, right? I connected the power cord to the plus end right here. So there's only one power cord here, right? That's important. So that's power supply supplying power to the encoder. The power supply does not supply power to the bottom line, as I mentioned before. This is key. So everything I said before, throw it out. What's happening is my power supply is supplying 13 volts. This regulates it down to 5 volts. That 5 voltage runs continuously through each of these wires and lands here, but cannot travel down to the ground. So this wire is actually all ground. Yeah, blew my mind too. So how does this work, right? It's a system called pull to ground. So what happens is, so each one of these wires, so if I took my multimeter right now and I turn this on, you would read 5 volts running through here. That voltage cannot pass through the reed switch unless you depress the pedal, right? When you depress the pedal though, that voltage goes to 0 on that particular pedal. So it hits the ground, and then we connected the ground, and then we ran a ground wire back into here, G and D for ground. So that's how the pedals, that's what's telling the computer the pedal has been triggered. It's not that we're supplying current through here, you depress the pedal and it goes out the mini encoder, which I thought before. It's actually reversed. And thankfully, I didn't have to change up my entire pedal board to make it work. So with that said, so just remember that there's only one power cord needed, and that's going from your power supply to the encoder, which then supplies 5 volts into the pedal. Each one of these is getting 5 volts. And then when you depress the pedal, that particular 5 volt goes to 0 because it's sending it to the ground wire, which runs through here and ends up in here. Then, that's not the end of the story. We have another ground wire, which is going to run from our encoder back out to our power supply. So this guy right here. So that's the circuit. So that is important. That is very important. Because I don't want you to have to wait, 2 weeks or whatever to reset this all up. Then you're going to have your MIDI out and your MIDI in. No, this is MIDI in, this is MIDI out. And then, so everything else should work, hopefully. Also, the guys from DTS told me that what's supposed to happen is when you turn the power on, there's a green diode here. This should light up. When you depress the pedal, this red light or diode here will light up. And that is indicating that MIDI data is being sent from the pedal board out to the computer. All right, so without further ado, let's test this out. The suspense is killing me as well. So we have a power supply connected to the wall, supplying 13 volts out to the MIDI encoder, which is then supplying 5 volts to each individual pedal. You depress the pedal, that 5 volts goes to 0 because it's called pull to ground. And we have the ground wire running along the bottom out to back to the encoder. The encoder also has a ground wire running back to the power supply. So when I turn the power supply on, we should see a green light turn on the encoder. And when I depress the pedal, a red light should come on the encoder. Please let this work. Power is on. We have a green light, and it hasn't gone out yet. So let's try pulling a pedal. Let's see. There it is. It's working, I think. So, let me go through, test each individual pedal, make sure I see a red light turn on. Then we'll connect it up to the computer and see what happens. And that's pretty much it, if this works. Big if. All right, stay tuned.